Hello, welcome to another tutorial video on using LS Prepost and LS-DYNA for simulation analysis. This is part 2 of a 4-part series for beginners in using Prepost and DYNA for basic simulations. Today's video will be focused on the pre-processing necessary to set up an input file for the solver, LS-DYNA. Specifically, this video will be regarding the creation of the mesh, while the next one will be focused on the easy setup process. This video already assumes that you've seen the first part in the series, which teaches you how to download and set up LS Prepost and LS-DYNA. If you followed the steps to the first video, you should have a training folder consisting of several files. In this folder, I've extracted the only 2 files that will be necessary for this training exercise, the blank IGES file and the tooling surfaces, including the punch, die, and binder. Now that we have these files, let's go into Prepost and see what we can do. So to begin with, we'll go to the upper left, hit File, Open, and IGES to import the tooling surfaces, which I'll select here. It's not important which order you import them and mesh them in, but in this case I'm going to start with the tooling surfaces. Once we do that, we'll be prompted by this menu, which will offer us several options. To start with, we need to uncheck Import Blank Shape, and I'm going to check Specify Unit. In this case, I'll use millimeters. Once we do that, we'll see this loading bar in the bottom left fill several times to ensure us it's actually working. Once we import the file, we're going to go over several movement options so that you can tell everything's all right and to get yourself comfortable. So once you import it, we can hold Control and click to rotate the object. We can hold Control and use the middle mouse button to drag the object, translate it around. And we can hold Control and use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out on the object. We can also use this in the bottom left, or middle bottom left, to auto-center the object, which we can also do through Control A. Once you've gotten into a position you're comfortable with, where you can see everything quite well, or at least what you want to work on, you should draw your attention to this tree in the upper left. With this tree, we can uncheck and check several objects so we can tell what they refer to. In this case, we can see that the 2 B-splines refer to the binder, shell 2 refers to the die, and shell 1 refers to the punch. So we're going to start by meshing the punch. Here on the right side, we're going to need to select MF Pre. If you don't have the icons or text, you can see them through View, Toolbar, Text and Icon on the right side. If you don't have MF Pre, make sure to go over the first video, or alternatively hit Control Q to open up the easy setup and just close out of it, because we're not quite ready for that yet. Anyway, to mesh the punch, we're going to go to MF Pre and hit Auto Mesh. It's likely going to look like this when you first open it. We're going to use a deviation mesh. Since only the punch is here right now, if we select active, we'll be selecting the entire punch, which is what I'll do now. It'll turn gray, and then we can hit mesh. So now that it's created the mesh, we can actually uncheck the punch to see what the mesh would look like, and that's what it would look like. And it looks all right, so I'm going to hit accept. That is going to be saved under this FEM part, so this is going to be the punch mesh, which I'm going to right-click, rename into the punch, just to keep things organized. Now that we've done that, we can uncheck everything except the die and follow the same steps for the die. So I'm going to go MF Pre, Auto Mesh, Deviation, Active, Mesh, Accept, Done. And once again, it's saved under FEM parts. I'm going to right click, rename, and rename it into the die. We can follow the same step for the binder, which I'll do quickly. Same thing, Deviation, Active, Mesh, Accept, Done. And now we have our mesh parts for our tooling surfaces, our punch, die, and binder. So now let's work on our blank mesh. First, we have to import it. So same steps as before, File, Open, IGES, and this time I'm going to open the blank file. The same menu is going to pop up. I'm going to make sure Import Blank Shape is off. I'm going to use the same unit, and this time I'm going to uncheck New Assembly. What this means is it'll go under the same tree. If you didn't check this, you'll just form a new tree and it'll go under different FEM parts, but it's not a huge deal. So now I'm going to turn off my meshes and see that this is our blank. So we're going to go to the right side, MF Pre, and this time we're going to use blank mesh instead of auto mesh. This menu will come up. We're going to use curve instead of 4 points, and we're going to need to select by surface. When we do this, we can select the object, and you can tell it's selected by a red outline going around it. Now, the only other thing we need to change is the mesh control option right here. The smaller the size, it's going to be more accurate, but it's also going to result in a longer computation time. So we're going to use a little bit of a smaller size for this. So let's try 7. So if we hit 7 and we hit create, we're going to see what the mesh would look like. And we can tell, if I zoom in right there, that it's not a completely accurate mesh. It's not really true to the outline of what it should be. So we're actually going to reject this here and turn down the mesh control a little bit lower. Let's say 3. So if we create this one, we can see that it looks a lot better. I don't have that awful glaring line there. So I'm going to step this one. I'm going to do the same thing as before and rename this one to the blank. Alright, that'll be it for this video. To summarize, we learned how to import IGES files and do the meshing for both tooling surfaces and the blank. In the next video, we'll learn how to actually take these meshes and form the input file for the solver.